Yeah, jump into the water. I mean, there's nothing bad that's going to happen. I mean, the only one stopping you is you. And it's all there for the taking. I mean, it's all there for you to experience. The whole world's been set up. All these wonderful people have created all these things throughout, the history of humanity for you to, you can be inspired by them and learn from them or be taught by them or work with them or, you know, uh, it's, there's just like a jungle gym waiting for you.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today's legendary guest is a mensch. Josh is honest, open, kind, and funny. We take a few minutes to really get into it. It's worth it. Trust me, great banter, especially at the start. Then the conversation just opens and flows, and you hear incredible stories of resilience, empowerment, and the willingness to be a better human. I love Josh and the many themes he delves into, which is just so empowering, relatable, and all done in a soft and playful way. So let's officially introduce today's guest, Josh Zuckerman. Josh is an award-winning actor as well as a writer and a director. You might recognize him from his many roles such as Sex Drive, Austin Powers and Goldmember, Feast, CBGB, Oppenheimer, coming soon, The Offer, It's Pony, A Real Adventure, The Big Bang Theory, 90210, Desperate Housewives, Carl XY, Boston Legal, CSI Miami, Significant Mother, Adventure Beast, The West Wing, and The Amanda Show, to name a few. So in this wide-ranging chat, we talk about Googling your net worth and being pleasantly surprised by it, playing the banjo, the hardships of being a child actor, shows that get cancelled, the hype of being a leading man, self-worth and bitterness, resilience, regrets and letting go, playfulness, and defining hard work. Also, before we get into this chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I find it adds a new element and dynamic to these chats. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny and Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out every Monday at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, with the video to follow the following day. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's epic episode.
This could be a funny way to start the podcast. Do you ever Google yourself?
Maybe usually in association with something else, Josh Zuckerman net worth. No, I mean, not really. No,
I'm glad
did
that
that
you
come
bring up
up?
the net worth. Yeah,
Is
because
that right?
I saw the net worth and it said 218.9 million. And I
Yeah.
just thought I should congratulate you on that because that's a pretty high number.
Yeah, no, that was last year's estimate. They
Oh,
haven't, Google hasn't updated
how does it feel to be
number
worth that
reserves.
much?
Well, it's it's a huge responsibility. Uh, yeah, it's a lot of bidding wars and a lot of envious glances.
Do you ever have people in your circles throw that number at you? Because that
No,
is,
no. I mean, I really, I mean, the reason it came up, or that I thought maybe you were going to say that, is because that does seem to come up next to people's names, and I don't know where they come up with these numbers. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who's. I guess enough people are Googling that. Net worth is enough of a term that people want to search. I have no idea. I mean, would they multiply, like, I don't know, they give some derivation or some dividend of what Austin Powers Goldmember made, and they divide that by like my number on the call sheet, and it comes up with my net worth. I have no idea.
When I saw that, because this actually happened with a few guests, and you're right, it is one of the first things when you type in someone's name is their net worth. No one
Yeah.
knows how it's calculated, what's involved. It makes no sense. One guy that I had on the podcast, I think he was worth 50 million, and he was, I think, in early 20s in Australia. There ain't nobody worth like that much, and it just makes no sense. But
Yeah.
we have heard stories where parents are like, "What, you've got this type of money," or friends, and they see you in a different light. I'm glad that you don't have any experiences quite like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, nobody's ever mentioned that to me. Fortunately, nobody, at least in my circles, has taken that to heart that any of that is accurate or how it would be. I mean, unless the IRS starts, revealing people's incomes after a certain threshold. But yeah.
It would be pretty funny if you did get a letter from the IRS because they did read it themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Fingers.
hey, so you got some stuff you wanna tell us? Let me
uh,
check your mattress.
yep.
Yeah.
And I also, when I typed in Josh Zuckerman, there were other people. Do people ever get you mixed up with the other Joshes?
Oh no, it's just the point of the interview you realize you reached out to the wrong Josh.
Can you imagine?
Wait a second, you're the which one? The actor? No, I know there is a singer,
Yeah.
I think a country singer, and I know that because people have told me that, and then I since have Googled this Josh Zuckerman. I've never listened to his music, so I don't know, or gone to ancestry.com to determine whether we're related in any way. But that's the only other one that I'm familiar with. I think there's one more that maybe reached out to me,
Oh, really?
someone.
I
What's
tried
that?
to sell their like Instagram name to you for like $1 million or none of
Yeah.
that.
No, nothing like that. I think there was at one point someone who was, I don't know, when you say that, it makes me think of I think it was at one point somebody was impersonating me on some social media platform. I can't remember what it was.
Oh,
And
really?
I was a little flattered. I didn't know why anybody would go out of their way to and it wasn't like they were posting anything that was scandalous or anything like that. It was just like a normal, as it was probably a better curated version of my social media. So maybe I should have gotten rid of mine and just let them do the hard work.
I'm glad that you find that as a compliment. So were they taking your content or were they personally imitating you?
No, I think they weren't taking my, I don't remember, but I think that it was all just stuff they found on the internet. Maybe there was one thing that I thought was really odd. Because I think maybe it was in the bio or something like that. It was, something that I would never say, but they're purporting that I am saying it.
What was it?
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember offhand. Because I think I took them down and they're gone, whoever they were.
Oh, but it was a compliment. You mentioned how,
Yeah,
but at the same time, we can't have too many Joshes.
no,
That's your, maybe they were playing banjo because I know that you play banjo.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah, they weren't. But yeah, I do love that instrument. Yeah, as you've checked out my social
I,
my
I have, and I've listened to all
Instagram.
the other interviews. It was actually very interesting that you play the banjo because that is not as common as some of the other instruments. What got you into it?
Um, I was gifted a banjo by
Ah,
yeah, my dad gave me a banjo one year for Christmas. We celebrate Christmas just it's fun. Um,
and you come from
and
Jewish, are you Jewish or?
yeah, well, I'm half Jewish. I was never really raised religious in any respect, but my dad's heritage is Jewish, and he was probably raised a little bit more religious. And I think I had heard. Have you ever been to Disneyland? I don't. Yeah, I guess parts of the Caribbean ride to Disneyland. And you go at the beginning portion, not to, not to spoil it for anybody who hasn't been on it, but at the beginning portion, you go through this area before the ride really starts. You go through the Blue Bayou. There's a restaurant there, and people are eating, and it's very, to me, I've always found it very calming. And there is a mannequin on a porch to, I guess, simulate what it'd be like in, I don't know, antebellum New Orleans or something like that, playing a banjo. And I just always love that environment, that just cruising through that little quaint um, part of the lagoon before you go down to the ride, and all the thrills start. And I love the sound of the banjo, and that's kind of how that started. And I think I must have mentioned it that my dad gifted me one, and then I was off and running with the banjo. And
Because I've heard it brought up a few times, but I think it's a really cool instrument. And you're in a talk show many years ago and you were playing it. I thought it was very
yeah,
cool.
Oh
Have
yeah,
you?
thanks. That was very. I'd never played it publicly. It was very
Oh, really?
yeah, it was very terrifying
You
because
did a
you know
great
how.
job.
Oh, thanks.
And have you played it since? Is it something that you look to? Is it a personal thing, or do you want to get out there and play it?
No, it's definitely just for myself, or for anyone who'll listen. But not. I've never really thought about bringing it publicly. There was at one point there was a project that was specifically about independent film that was specifically about a young man who played the banjo. And the film, as far as I know, never got made, but I got pretty far on it and auditioning for it. And I know I just thought it was so great that, happened to be something that I knew how to play. And that was the only time that it kind of approached being public, my playing. I mean, other than that interview. Uh, but I know I really love playing and I love learning about the instrument and the history of it and the history of the many, many songs. There's some very, particularly like kind of old, they called like old time music, turn of the century, 19th, 20th century music. Uh, and they're just stories. A lot of times they're really repeated over and over again with different lyrics, but the same chorus over and over again. Um, but yeah, I love I love how it makes me feel. It's kind of soothing, and
Ooh.
it's easy to sing to.
So is it kind of like grounding for you? Like, does it put you in like in a happy place or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little hypnotic. It can be hypnotic
Oh,
for me, and I appreciate that. And uh, it's also something to do with your hands that I'm not very good. I've done some woodwork, but I'm not very good at it,
oh,
and it's
better
just
man
nice
than
to be
me.
able to. The what?
You're a better man than me.
Oh, why is that?
That's
Do you
not in
play?
our repertoire as Jewish
Yeah.
men. We're
Oh,
not we're not handymen,
yeah.
stereotypically.
No, yeah. Well, I attempt, but I get frustrated very, very easily.
Okay, so it's similar to
Yeah.
me then.
Yeah. Many, many YouTube videos later, I'm still cursing. Yeah, I like being able to do something and have an immediate result like that, which is not and being able to hear it, I mean, acting is different than that. If you feel like you're watching yourself, it's probably not very good. So it's not quite the same. You can't really be the audience, so it's not really as enjoyable as an audience member in that sense. But I feel like in a way, music you can, yeah, maybe it's easier to feel when you feel the rhythm. It's just easier to feel when you're in the groove of something.
That's very interesting. And I would imagine, I know you've done a lot of theater as well, but getting that direct response. And I guess that's the difference between being an actor on set as opposed
Hmm.
to when you've got a live audience, because you can feel the direct feedback as well.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
would be amazing, that feeling as well.
yeah. Yeah, it's and it feels a little bit like playing the banjo to me, and I'm not a musician by any means, but I'm it feels like you're not doing it alone. Even if you are alone, the banjo feels like your scene partner. It feels like, I don't know. I think that that's probably not an uncommon feeling
Interesting.
in people who play instruments because you create a bond with something, especially if you're playing using that particular instrument over and over again. If you're, going around town and from city to city and you're playing a different piano and you're probably meeting the piano, and have to reacquaint yourself. But if you have your axe or whatever people say for people real musicians call guitar or something like that. I think there is a relationship that you feel, and then you clean it and you tend to it, you nurture it. You say, oh, you need to be really strong. Why is this? You're constantly tuning it. I mean, it really is. You guess you form a bond. Actually looking at my banjo right now, but please don't ask me to play or anything like that, because it's the bridge is. I took out the bridge because I'm trying to replace the bridge, but that's what makes me think of it. I have some
These are
nylon
words I don't
strings here.
understand. The bridge. I'm not a
Yeah, the
musician.
bridge. It's the bridge. It's over troubled water at this point. But yeah, yeah. I think you do have a relationship with it.
That is a beautiful explanation. I've never had anyone quite say it like that. That bond you build, and as time when you first got it, you're building that relationship. You're also getting better, and you're growing with it in a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. It's pretty, and I imagine that happens with everything. A baseball player has maybe their baseball bat, and
Mm.
golfer has their clubs, but there's something I don't know that I find that I could never really find with any of those sports that that I found with the banjo, and to be clear, I can't play anything else. I can barely, I can, tinkle the ivories of the piano, but I can't really play it.
Not a guitar?
Yeah.
Can you play guitar?
No, no, it just went straight to banjo, and guitar kind of baffles me. But I think guitar players feel that way about banjo playing.
When when you were first gifted the banjo, were you seen as the cool kid when you were playing it?
No, no.
It's a story there. The way you said no
Admittedly,
that
no.
quickly.
Yeah. No, no. I mean, I think that you get a lot of raised eyebrows or double raised eyebrows, single raised eyebrows. And there's a lot of I think banjo players are the butt of a lot of jokes. That's what I came to learn. I didn't know that ahead of time, but I came to learn that as I certainly in the music scene.
You'd have to be resilient, though, that if people are teasing you at a young age and to keep on continuing, that's
Yeah.
still pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's that sound. I mean, like it always is. I feel like a lot of people say that. It's just the sound that got me. Um, and sorry, my dog's barking a little bit.
Oh, good.
And yeah, so that's the story of the banjo and me, I guess.
I would have thought that it would be like you'd be like a peacock. If you're playing banjo, no one probably at school is aware or they know of the banjo, but they wouldn't really know much about it. And you're playing something different. Wouldn't that put you in like the cool kid status? I'm very
Well,
surprised.
well, also, I mean, maybe if I had started, I don't even know when I started, but I wasn't in grade school when I started. I mean, I started, I have no idea. Uh, I think gosh, I really don't know. I want to say that maybe I even started in college around, so it was 18, 19 or something like that. And then it was one of those things where, if I wasn't already established in it, I would have to travel with it, to keep up my playing. But
Right.
it didn't. There were stretches of time where I didn't take it with me, and then I pick it. It's only now where I, choose my own hours, so to speak, when I'm not working, that I can make a habit of playing it every day.
Oh, wow.
And and have travel with it. Sometimes it's nice. There were a few times where it's nice to take it to a set as long as it's not annoying anyone, but to take it to your trailer because you spend so much time waiting around. I haven't done that recently because I haven't had to. A lot of what I've been doing, or at least the past 2 years, from 2020 and 2021, was actually at home. So
Like voice work or
voice work, yeah. That's where this beautiful mic we have here. That was kind of what took me through 2020 and 2021. Or actually, that's not true. 2020 mostly, and then 2021 I started on camera stuff again.
that's
Into
very
this
cool
year.
that you could
Yeah.
find that. And how do you find that as opposed to on-screen acting?
Well, it's kind of a funny thing. I mean, I only got into it because of this Nickelodeon show called It's Pony
Yeah.
that I auditioned for probably 5 or 6 years ago, and then it was
Oh,
a
wow.
short as part of Nickelodeon has this shorts program, and they produce these shorts, and then every once in a while one of those shorts is ordered to a pilot, and then every even less rare than one of those pilots is ordered to a series, and that's what happened with Pony. And so it happened over 3 or 4 years, and it through that I met one of my co-stars, Jessica DeChico, introduced me to her agent, her voiceover agent, because I'd never considered to have a voiceover agent. And then I started doing more voiceover, and that fortunately was timed with Pony getting a second season, and then also being able to essentially work from home on other projects during the pandemic. And had I not had I not had Pony and had not Jessica introduced me to a voiceover agent, which I didn't even realize was a thing,
Oh,
because
really?
again, my on-camera agent had sent me out on the Pony audition for the one voiceover job I had. But had I not had those things, I wouldn't be able to work from home. And yeah, so I'm very, very thankful for that, because it really opened up a whole new world, and it's been very enjoyable. It has its own challenges, but there's and that translates into other things. That translates into dubbing and a voiceover and animation, or actually mostly animation for me, not commercials or anything like that.
Well, that I like your outlook on that, and also we can get into it in a bit. I don't know where you stand on this, but for some actors, it can be a bit of an ego hit when you go from on screen to voiceover. It doesn't sound like it is for you, but also to see that the gratitude within that. And you've done quite a few episodes, I believe, as well, which is really cool. And then you mentioned it opens a new world. So your arena has grown and you can do so many, hopefully more and different and things for you as well. That seems pretty cool. I can see you got something brewing.
Oh yeah, no, that's funny. People always look like I guess no, I think I have resting either confused face or a resting eager face. I don't know
Eager face.
what I'm doing. But I mean, I definitely having thoughts, but yeah, no, it's I don't think it as an ego. I never really thought of it that way. I mean, first it was something that I was doing in tandem with on-camera stuff, and I also feel work is work is work, and I happen to really love working on that Nickelodeon show Pony, which is my first show in voiceover world, and I loved working with the people that I worked with, and I just thought it was a delightful show.
Nice.
I think it had 2 seasons, and I think it neared its end. I don't know if it has been publicly announced, but I think that's unfortunately the end of Pony. But
Oh
for now,
no.
at least, you never know. But it was it was just really wonderful. It was a transition to do it in a closet. It was fun to go into the studio and record next to someone, and you have a booth, and you feel like you can move your body and as you're being recorded, and you don't have to worry about the audio or adjusting the gain. And now you go into a closet, and I have outfitted, and I'm not alone. I know this is a very common complaint now, but it's not even a complaint. It's just a fact of what comes with being a voiceover actor now, artist now, is you have to retrofit these closets. You have to seek out closets, and you have to figure every closet's different. And you bring you when you move to a new location, you move with your moving blankets and your pillows, or you try to borrow pillows, and you move with however you're going to suspend your microphone. You bring your microphone, you bring your laptop, you make sure there's a good internet connection. But on the flip side of that, one of the great things it happened, and I didn't even. There were a few times where I traveled without even telling anyone, and I would just make sure that I had a closet and a good internet connection. I brought all my stuff, and no one ever said anything. I mean, there were some ridiculous situations. I mean, absurd setups.
You have to tell me.
I mean, one of the funny things that my girlfriend and I always thought was very funny is that I would call ahead, because I would hear, oh, it looks like you're recording next week on this day at this time. And if I knew I was traveling, but I didn't know where I was going to be, but we had an idea, I would call around to different hotels, and I would say, hi, we may be staying with you next week, and we're wondering, do you have closets in your room? And they go, yeah, we have closets. And I said, well, okay. Could you tell me, how big are the closets? Are they like, if I wanted to stand in the closet, and they go, well, you could stand in the closet. I don't know why you would stand in the closet. I said, well, listen, and there were at one point somebody they said, we're going to send somebody up there, and they're going to go in the closet. And I said, no, you don't have to do that. I said, no, we want to help you out. So I mean, who knows what they thought. I did explain it to some people, but I still don't think they understood. And then I would say, like, do you have what's your internet connection? Could you potentially go to speedtest.net and tell me what your internet upload and download speeds are? They probably thought I had some terrible porn addiction or something like that. I mean,
or like putting bodies in a closet or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's very, very strange. But
That's awesome.
Yeah. And there were a few times where there were no I mean, I would arrive at a place and it was promised, and then there wasn't a closet, and then I would have to make do. There was like a cubby hole, and then I would just take every comforter and every pillow and ask housekeeping for more, comforters, pillows, whatever, any cloth that I could find, moving furniture around to kind of just dull up the space, and then stick my head in under a sheet. So I mean.
Have you taken photos of these? This is hilarious. You have to.
No, I don't. Maybe the one I'm thinking of, one in particular in New York that they had to do, and I was so nervous. I should have just said, I'm not at home. But every time you say you're not at home, they have to do like this test, and
test to see it's working, or
yeah, they have to do a test ahead of time. But the problem was I couldn't test ahead of time because I wasn't going to be there until the day I arrived to do the. So I thought, this is just going to create a headache. I can do this. I've done it in many different closets, and
the closet king.
Yeah. So anyway, it comes with its own
That is hilarious. We had you're right. So many voiceover actors have told me all similar stories, and one that springs to mind is Josh Brenner. I don't know if you know who he is. He was in this
Yeah.
tiny little. He literally couldn't move in it. It was so funny, and I thought he was like playing a game with me, and he was like hiding. He goes, "No, this is the space that I have to do voiceovers in," and I just found it so funny. And he had like everything there to block out the noise, and
Oh yeah.
you have to do it. So
Oh, so he came at you live from his little recording
yeah,
studio.
yeah.
Yeah, mine's in the closet right over here, but I figured I didn't have to stay in there.
No,
Also, you wouldn't be able to see me because I don't have any lights in there. It's just be the light of the
yeah,
computer
his
screen.
was pitch black, and then he obviously
Okay.
had a light or something. So it
Yeah,
looked
yeah,
like it was like a cubby house game. It was hilarious. I loved it for it.
yeah.
Um, one thing I've written down about 20 points, and I might be jumping the gun, but you mentioned how that show had ended, and I know that you had a lot of fun. That's like every actor has a different relationship with this, but I would imagine when you've been doing something that you enjoy, that would be quite hard. And I know that there was another show that you did. It just slips my significant mother, for example. I know this has happened a
Yeah.
lot in your career and everyone else's career, that you're doing a show that you love and you're getting along with people. It just feels like the right creative project at the time. And then unfortunately it ends. How do you deal with that? That would be crushing to me.
Yeah, I mean, the fortunate part of that unfortunate nature of um, well, being in the film industry, I guess, is projects coming and going quite a lot. And maybe that's fair to say that the comparison is it happens in many other industries like that. But particularly, I think in film industry is that actors are kind of used to getting their heart broken.
Yep.
I think quick to fall in love with a project and it either falls apart, they don't get the part. So it is harder when something, you get the part, the show gets picked up, uh, you have a great experience, you really enjoy working with these people. You had it, and then it doesn't get picked up. That it does hurt a little bit extra because not how hard it is. I don't want to say how hard it is because I do think miraculous things happen. Sometimes it seems like the easiest thing in the world. You're like, what? They want me to do what with what? And we're doing it and it's happening and oh my gosh. You go, and then other times, you're trudging against, it's an uphill battle, and then you maybe whatever it is you're seeking happens, or maybe it doesn't.
Mm.
But generally speaking, it seems like it is rarer for a show to get picked up, for example,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
for that to just fall apart is really tough. In the case of also Significant Mother, I mean, that was a strange, although this, I say strange, but now that I'm thinking about it, it happens over and over again, where it seems like some things are clear. Like Significant Mother was a show that was supposed to be a web series on CWC, and actually I had finished a project. It's the only time that I think this has ever happened to me, and I finished a project in New Orleans, and I got into my trailer. I don't remember, it wrapped and whatever the scene was, say goodbye to everyone essentially. And I'm still in wardrobe. I walk into my trailer, and I always leave my phone usually in my trailer because I don't take it to set unless I don't know, maybe there, I don't want to say always because maybe there's a reason I would want to be anyway,
Yep.
but usually. And I called my manager and I said, well, I'm unemployed. And she said, well, actually, um, there's this show and they were looking for, they had a, breakdown of the character description. And they said they were looking for a Josh Zuckerman type, which
That's
I had
amazing.
never heard before. And I was very
You're a
flattered.
type.
And I said, well,
Congratulations.
I'm that type. So do they, and she said, so, yeah, and that ended up being, at first it was called Motherfucker and, Mother Effer. And then, we did a few episodes up in Oregon, in Portland, and we really had a great time. I mean, it really was. I was very proud of it. I still am proud of it. And then only then, after they'd seen a few episodes, I think they added a few more episodes. Picked it up for 6 more episodes or
Oh,
something,
wow.
and made it a show for their summer series. And then after that premiered, it did, I think, moderately well. I don't know. That's my understanding of it. And then we were told that it's gonna get a second season.
I didn't know
And
that.
we were told a number of times, but it kind of wasn't officially announced. And then it was, no, 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 it's going to happen. And then it wasn't officially announced. And it was like, well, when's it going to be announced? And they're like, no, 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 it's going to happen. Such and such already mentioned, like they alluded to it in this press conference. And then at the last, 11th hour, they just pulled the plug and said, so it's not going to happen.
Oh, no.
And then, there's always a story of why it will and won't happen. I don't even know if what I should or shouldn't mention. I mean, something like this has happened. I'm
This
wondering if I should mention things. I don't know. Um,
up to you. I don't want to put you on the spot.
no, I don't know how it would. Something like that happened with this exact show. The show almost got picked up again, years later. And everyone was really excited about it because it was such a wonderful show and it's just wonderful group of people involved, and it didn't happen again. So these types of things happen, and how do you deal with it? You just, you know, take it however you're taking it, whether you want to cry about it or, I don't know if I really cry about it. I just get kind of glum and, man, say, man, that sucks, or man, I really, and then it wears off and you find something else to focus on, and that's just part of the game. It's not like you lost that experience. You still had a great time with these people, and you're either proud of the show or not. But yeah.
You have a great outlook on that because you first mentioned the positives that you got to experience something. That's really awesome. But at the same time, not to like harp on it too much. You've made like connections. You're hopefully creatively fulfilled. You're being paid well, hopefully, and it's a great experience. But just that whirlwind of emotions.
Yeah.
Yes, it comes with experience. But when you're being told it's going to happen, you're a type like
Yeah.
that's amazing. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
You're working with these people. You're probably laughing as well, having a lot of fun in between. It's going to happen, and then you might put your life on hold as well because you think the
Yeah.
show's going to happen
Yeah.
because you don't want to double book or however it works. And then they keep on, regardless of why, like kind of misleading you. That is a spiral of emotions that is tough to deal with. That is a tough
Yeah.
pill. We've had many guests talk about crying or taking a few days, or every guest has got a unique take on it. But to still hear you talk about, for example, that project in a positive lens shows that you've obviously had quite a positive journey of being able to deal with such experiences because it can be crushing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting also that I think the manner, and nobody's intentionally doing anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone, I don't, it's not like they hyped up the show and that just to pull the rug out from under us. I think they fully believe the show in that case would be picked back up. But it is interesting though that's kind of a quality. It makes me think of, I mean, I did this film Sex Drive that was
A very
was a
funny film.
really, yeah, and it was really critically, or not critically, I was going to say, they did all these test screenings and it was very popular. It tested very well. That's supposed to be an indication of how successful it'll be at the box office. And because of that, they threw a lot of money behind it in terms of advertising. And because of that, um, it got, I'm sure everyone involved, and I know from my experience, I certainly got a little bit more people taking notice of me. And I remember people and I've said this before in an interview, I don't know who it was, but CAA, which is, the top agency of whatever, would call my manager and say, we think Josh is great, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure they didn't know my name before the Summit Entertainment started pumping out advertising for this new film. And then the film was a flop and critically, and I would say more at the box office.
Yeah,
I think people love people love that film. I think still, in fact, people are often commenting that it's
it's a
one of their
great film.
formative comedies of their youths. Yeah, and thank you. And but you kind of, I remember that was the first big time something like that had happened. This hype, 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 and then and it's a similar feeling. And I think because of that, the risk, I know for anyone, but certainly for me, is this, unfortunately, I think I've evaded it, is bitterness. Because you can easily, and it's understandably, get bitter in this industry for feeling like, why did you promise me something again and again and again, and then say no at the last hour? Why did you? But then you start getting into entitlement, and you start getting into like feeling that it's entirely personal, and it's not. There's a lot of things that go into why something is a success or why something happens or doesn't happen, and it just makes it all the more miraculous when things do. So I try not to put too much of my. It's hard. It's a challenge, but your worth into this job that we do, and all the different things that come with it. Like I said, I've not mastered that, but I am mindful of it because I'm still going through puberty. No, I uh I do, I really would never want to become bitter. It's something I am very wary of.
I've written about 30 points. I think Josh Brenner gave a hilarious example when I asked him how does he deal with this, and he says at the end of the day we just make stuff where people watch on the toilet, and that kind
Yeah,
of gets him out of the loop. But
yeah, that's nice.
it really is. I don't know how many people do that, but anyway, I think it's a really interesting journey because I think you're number one on the call sheet. The show is great, and you go in, you do your job, and your job's to be the best actor, say your lines, hopefully get along with people, arrive on set, blah, 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 all these things. And that's the only thing in your control. Then you've got people, rightfully or wrongfully, it doesn't really matter, saying they're probably pumping up your ego to 1,000. And I can understand why. This movie's going to be the best thing ever. You're doing a great job. You're feeling great because you're doing good work. And then it's being amplified. The testing's doing so well. And then at the end of the day, how maybe the producers look at it hasn't made a lot of money. Whereas for you, that's not within your control unless if you're the producer or you're involved in that side. Yeah, you can help to a degree, but that's not your primary role. So many people will see this movie and think it's hilarious and that you've done a good job and that's all that you can do. But I'm sure you still can't help, especially being that high on the call sheet, not take it somewhat personally, even though it's not your fault whatsoever. If anything, you made it better than what it would be. I always find that so interesting because a box office hit or failure is purely on the money, but that's such a small component to you when you're doing your job. So how do you kind of like balance that? Because has literally nothing to do with you.
I mean, the Serenity Prayer, uh, because you, I think it's also what's nice about being an actor in that you can move on to something else. You're not, maybe as a director, certainly, you're tied to a project for a year, but we could film Sex Drive in over a few months, and then I move on to whatever I moved on to, which I don't even remember. But and then come back to and then Sex Drive's coming out, so then it's something else. It's good to give attention to again. But it's nice that you can get distracted, and it's a nice quality in that respect to be able to be distracted easily. I think that's what the bounce back, the resiliency quality that I think any professional actor needs to have is you just bouncing from one thing and then the next. And if something's a quote unquote failure or doesn't turn out the way it was expected to, you just bounce on to the next thing. That's kind of how I look at that. But it is. I heard, and I'm just quoting someone else on a podcast, but why not? It's great. I can't remember who said this actually. Someone said this. I think, no, wait, was it? Oh, it was
Josh Brenner?
Sam Rockwell.
Yeah.
And he said, it's not enough to be good, to do good work in a show or something like that. It's not enough to do good work in a show that's also good. And it's not enough. You have to do work in a good show that people see. Do you know what I mean? There's three components. It's like you could do good work all day long, but nobody's seeing it. Or you could do good work all day long and the shows, I'm butchering the quote. But I thought that was so interesting that the stars have to align. You have to be good in it. It has to be good. And people have to see it. And those are the three components to a successful, film or TV show.
But is that from the actor's point of view or the producer side? Because as an actor, yeah, you can like pick and choose to a degree depending where you're at. But a lot of that's out of your control in a sense. Yeah, you can read a script and say, I think this is going to be amazing. But I'm sure you've had experiences where you thought some scripts were amazing and then the other way around as well.
Yeah. And that's hard. That's hard because, something has potential. But then again, you just go, oh, well, like you say, I mean, there's nothing I could do about it. I did the best I could within reason. I'm not going to, there's always another script. There's always another day. Well, not always, but, it's you do the best you can with what you're given, and then you move on. And that's, maybe we get used to that as well, because at the end of the day, especially on camera stuff, I mean, it's, unless there's going to be a reshoot, I mean, it's set in stone. So I think I certainly know, but I think probably all actors know this feeling of finishing a scene and going, well, it's set in stone. I can't change it, but I wish I could change it. there's wish I could try this or that, or I wish I hadn't tried, I don't think that worked. But then again, you had at some point, even if you're driving home still thinking about the scene, or you're still, weeks later still thinking about the scene, as I have done, and haunts you, you ultimately at some point have to go. I mean, there's stuff I've done, years ago that I can watch and go, oh, why did they choose that take, or why this, or what did or why did I do this? But at some point, you kind of just have to go, let it go. I mean, you just have to let it go. And so in the same way, if the film doesn't work out, when people don't see it, you have to go, that sucks. Well, I have to let it go. I mean, what am I going to do about it? It is interesting this day and age with social media that I think there is a bit of an expectation, not so much of me, I don't have a huge social media presence, but that actors are responsible for promoting their show. So in that way, they may feel responsible if it doesn't do well, if it doesn't find an audience. They might feel partly responsible, like I wish I'd done more interviews, or I wish I'd pushed on my social media, or I wish I had more followers, or I wish I haven't really felt that, but I know that is part of the game in a way now, for some people in some productions, and so I get that. But I think there is something that I'm happy to promote anything that I'm part of, if I'm proud of it, and but I think there is a part of me that also feels like, in a way, that's not the actor's job.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting. But maybe I don't want to be an old fuddy-duddy. I mean, everything evolves. So maybe that now is just as creating your own sound voice booth to record voiceovers is now part of the voiceover artist's job. I think some people already had that, but for
I agree with the involvement of oneself
Yeah.
and the creative journey. I also wrote down another 20 points, and we'll see where we go with this.
Where are you writing? Are you writing? Your invisible
You can't. I
hand.
just jot down
Okay.
little points so I
Okay.
don't distract myself and always go off tangent.
Okay.
And
Okay.
from the regret side, I think this is really important because it applies to everyone, regardless of the industry. When we do something like, I could have done it this way, I should have done it this way. And
Yeah.
for me, even like, this is embarrassing, like improv when there's zero stakes.
Yeah.
And you're like, I could have done it that way, even if it's just a class. And then
Yeah.
it gets to a point where you can't live, other people can't live their life like that, because then you're just haunted with all these regrets. So it sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you have this insight where you could have done something differently, but it doesn't haunt you and consume you your whole life. Like you might go, I could have done it this way, but it sounds like that's a way for you to kind of learn from it, not something that
Yeah.
holds you back.
Well, this is something I've been talking a lot about recently, because it also comes in bouts. I feel like sometimes I'm better at letting things go than other times, and then I have to examine why that is on certain projects. I can't let something go, but um, I think that a thing I've been talking about with a coach recently is this idea of having a growth mindset.
Mm.
In other words, it's fine to make a mistake, or fail, or do something less than um, you perform less than you would ideally like to perform.
Yep.
And even if it is set in stone for generations and generations, for all humanity to watch forever and ever if they want, provided that you can learn something from it, and you can learn how to approach it when you inevitably encounter that circumstance again. And I think that requires a lot of, in a way, without using a like buzzword, but compassion. And it's hard. So you have to go, hey, it's okay. You did something, you purposely screwed something up. I mean, and if you can learn from it, then hey, that was the best thing that could have happened in a way. And maybe it won't look so bad. Maybe you'll hate it, but maybe no one else will notice. But carrying these things around, I am known to do. But I try my best to focus on something else, whether that's another project, or seeing what I can learn from it and then moving on, which is more recently what I've been talking about. And but it's hard. I get it. Regrets are very difficult to. It's almost like, yeah, your own failures. I was listening to something recently. They were saying that I can't remember the percentage, but the majority of, it was a poll of Americans, feel like they're being held back by things that they felt like were done to them, and the same amount were felt like they were held back by things that failings of their own, that they did in themselves. And it's Look, I mean, that's what's nice of what in your title here. It's because it's true. I mean, everybody fails, and it is also it's also hard to define what a failure is. Everyone has a very personal
Yep.
definition of that, but I think it's also a tough word. It's full of so much meaning emotionally, and forget about the actual definition. And so it's tough to maybe failure is the wrong word to attach to these disappointments. Maybe disappointed and like is softer because it just feels like it's a failure. Therefore, it's a personal failure. Therefore, you did something wrong. Therefore, there's something wrong with you. Therefore. And I don't think that that's a helpful way of looking at it.
Perfect.
Yeah,
No, that's beautiful. That's such a nice way of looking at it. Failure has so much stigma and so much,
yeah,
it's so loaded. What does it actually mean? And for me, in a really short way of my relationship with it, is we don't really fail if we're trying to like grow from it, which is exactly what you're talking
yeah,
about with your growth mindset. Yeah, things don't go to plan and they can sting and they can hurt, and we can slam the table and wish things went a certain way. But if you're willing to, which is exactly what you're doing, looking at why it happened, examine it, and looking to grow, then that was just a learning experience. So
yeah.
that's very big of you. What made you see, if you don't mind me asking, see this coach? Because it sounds like you've really dive deep into this aspect
Yeah.
of failure and
Um,
also growth.
yeah, I had a friend, his name's Joe Town, and um, I talked to him a couple of years ago. I was kind of in a place in my life where I had, I wasn't sure I wasn't sure what I wanted or where I was going, and I had ideas, but I just felt like I wanted to get clear on that, and I just wanted to have conversations. I didn't want to necessarily therapy, that seems different, but I just wanted to constructively talk about what I was seeing in terms of my career, in terms of my life, but probably hugely in terms of my career. And he was very helpful. And more recently, I'm actually working on something right now, and I don't know if I get too personal, but I'm working on something right now, and I had a little bit of a struggle with it. And so that's kind of where this came from. I reached out to him again, and I said, I don't know why, but I'm having this trouble, and I'm having trouble letting things go, and I'm being really hard on myself, and it's not helpful. It doesn't feel good, and it's not sustainable. And so I reached out to him, and that's kind of where the genesis of that, of working with Joe again.
That is
Yeah,
epic. Thank you for bringing that up because I think that's what we all need. We all need someone to help us in some sense or give us the tools to be able to cope
yeah,
with certain things.
yeah. I think that it's the thing that I feel like in a way we're all standing in our own way a lot of the time,
Yep.
and it's hard to identify that, and it's hard to and you consciously say I don't want to stand in my way. I'm not standing in my way, but there's something. And so it's nice to be able to have someone uh, uh, kind of echo back some of the things you say, and even the words you say, and then to examine things to really get clear about what's going on and come up with tools. If something does come up, then you have tools for the next time something comes up. And yeah, so that's I'm a big proponent of that. I think that if we could if we could spend more time feeling good about ourselves and what we do, even if we fumble, then honestly, it sounds stupid, but I feel like the world will be a better place, and
I was
maybe
just
more
about to
people.
say that. I
Yeah,
100% agree with that. It's not silly. If everyone even like, this might be a weird way of saying it, improved by like 5% or 10% in their own
yeah,
way, the world
yeah,
would completely change. We would be
yeah,
stuck out of our negative
yeah,
patterns, jealousy. Um,
yeah,
what's it when we, having a blank, when we perceive something incorrectly, doesn't matter, then we lash
yeah.
out of what we think we're hearing. The world
Right.
would change and people wouldn't be in this like toxic negative spiral.
Yeah.
And I say this because I've been in that spiral. Everyone has. The world
Uh-huh.
would change. And what's that? I'm also going to butcher a quote where the way to change the world is to change yourself first. And I fully
Yeah.
believe that. Yes, we can help other people, but we also need to have our glass full to a degree.
Yeah. 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 I'm yeah. I think it's really great. I mean, I'm fortunate to be able to have the means to work, with someone on these things. That I it's very valuable. Uh, it's just very valuable because it really affects whatever your creative endeavor is or whatever your work environment is. I mean, all these things really affect the rest of your life, and
Exactly.
therefore then they affect everyone you come into contact with, and they um, it's easy to I think about the life I have and the kind of life I want, or the kind of life I want to continue to lead, and um, um, I want to be able to, it really comes down to a huge part. I want to be able to enjoy it. And a lot of things spring from there. But being able to enjoy it is, I have struggled for quite some time with being able to enjoy acting. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Um, and I would like to be able to enjoy it on a more consistent basis. And if I don't, it's not a because I failed. It's a, oh, this is a challenge. And okay, well, I rise to meet the challenge, and whether I feel like I appropriately, or I did everything I wanted to meet that challenge, or I succeeded in that challenge, or not. Maybe the success is just that I see it as a challenge as opposed to a failure. That's kind of what I'm trying to approach, and therefore can enjoy it more, because it I'm talking to myself in circles, and I also feel like I'm taking this in a very personal realm. But I guess
No,
if
no,
that's
this is
helpful for anyone to
exactly,
listen to, then
this
yeah,
is how, this is why I do the podcast, is exactly
yeah,
what you're saying. Everyone feels this at some level or has had experiences. So I truly, and I have as well. So you're helping me as well. And I'm glad that, the word I was thinking of before was projecting. But anyway, I actually found
yeah,
a quote because I speak about play and fun a lot on this podcast. And that's why I've gone into the creative arts. And that's why I'm doing screenwriting. I used to be an accountant. So I
mm,
know exactly, hopefully, what you're talking about. I found this quote from you, and I think it's really important. I try to remind myself that it's all supposed to be play. It's very easy for me to get attached to a destination or result and take everything too seriously. So I like to keep the word play rolling around in my head. And I think that is so important. Doesn't matter if you're in the creative arts or not, or you're an accountant. It's something that we're doing. And I'm not speaking about you, I'm just speaking about me. And if we take it so seriously, and I'm an actor or I'm an accountant, it can it can really impact us on so many different levels. And I'm of the belief that we deserve to play and have fun regardless of what field we're in,
hmm,
where possible. And we don't need to take life in such a, I have to do it this way. And like we need to have play and fun. Or when we have that experience, everything's a lot easier. It's like a weight's been lifted. And
yeah,
I always encourage people, and I guess encourage myself, to try and have play and fun where possible. Because as an adult, that concept is thrown out the door. We don't,
mm,
or I don't hear about it that much. No one really talks about it. And I think, especially being in the creative arts, that's part of the reason why we're here, is to have fun and be immersed in this creative project. And it can be really tough. And it's not really spoken about enough.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the I don't remember where I heard that that seriousness leaves no room for play, but play leaves room for seriousness. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great.
That if you're if you always had a playful mindset, you can absolutely take something life and deathly serious. But you also can have all these other colors. But if you're constricted and approaching everything so serious, you can't really go much else. You can't really go anywhere else. Um,
Mm.
so I think it's beautiful. Is that my quote? Is that what you were quoting?
Yeah,
Was that what
yeah,
you
that was
said?
your quote. Yeah,
Oh, was I? I don't know. Geez,
that's a
heed my
great
former
quote.
self. I have no idea when I said that.
Oh, I can send it
I'm
to you
gonna
if
put
you.
that on my IMDb or something. I feel like I should submit that to
Yeah, I'll
a
send
quote
it to you and you
book.
can put it, because it's a
Yeah,
great quote.
thanks.
It's really important. I
Yeah,
remember this is sort of along the lines, coming from my background, long story short, I was an accountant and I was serious and I hated it. I felt horrible. I wanted to do stand up. I don't do stand up, but I'm doing writing. And I just felt not like whole. I felt not fulfilled.
yeah,
And I remember someone saying to me, I was making a joke, and they're like, Michael, I don't have a good sense of humor. I don't like to laugh. And I'm like, oh, that is like, that just broke me. And I'm like, I don't ever want to be someone like that. Because in
yeah,
their story was, and no judgment, that they are in a serious lawyer or accountant, whatever they were, and they don't have time to be a child. And I was like,
yeah,
no, we're all children. We've all got that little inner child, and I don't know the
yeah,
psychology behind it. We're all here to play and have fun. It is the best thing in the world. You can still do your job and live your life, but
yeah,
playing and have fun makes everything so much easier. It's like, it's not even, just when, as you know, when you experience it, it's just the best. And the goal is to
Yeah.
try and do it as much where possible. And it can be tough. And I really applaud you for trying to bring this back, or at least think about it, because people don't even know about it. It's just thrown out, as I said, thrown out the door. It's not a, it's like a taboo topic. We don't talk about it. So
Yeah.
that's epic that you, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, thanks. I appreciate it. And likewise, I think that it's a worthwhile pursuit and reminder. I mean, the thing is, we get older and we have all these responsibilities, and we have, bills to pay, and there's all these other things rolling around our head. And I suppose that's what moves us hugely away from, and our bodies maybe aren't as agile, so we can't, run around or dance around and goof with this. So, but so maybe that's, one of the reasons we forget it. But I do think of some of the times where I have felt the most joyful, and they are usually the times that I felt the most playful. Even if it's like being in nature or something like that.
Yeah.
Or I specifically think, because I love water, I mean, I can specifically think of swimming once and feeling ecstatic, just ecstatic. And I was just kind of playing around in the water alone and just letting, there were some waves, it was an ocean, and I yeah, I think of that, and I think, well, that it felt so life affirming, and I think that that's sometimes what playfulness can feel like. It feels like, oh, this is it, and wherever you can find that, I mean, wherever you can cultivate that, and that's, I don't think it's that easy if you want to be a modern. Maybe if you went to a cave or something like that and spent your whole life, maybe you'd find it more easily. But it's if you can bring that into the you know rough and tumble of city life, or being part of the machine that is modern man, and modern living, then great.
It's a good take, and it's what I'm actually going to do. I'm not just saying this. I'm going to start improv classes again because of this conversation. So
Oh
thank
wow.
you very much.
Yeah.
And actually, that actually reminds me, I've done a few different improv places along the way. And one of them, no one there really had like comedy or acting aspirations. Some were mums, some were lawyers, some were scared of public speaking. And it was such a unique group of people. And they were all there pretty much to have play and fun because they've lost in their life. I
Yeah,
just found that so amazing.
it's beautiful.
Because I was there not really for that when I first started. It wasn't, I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know what improv was. But they were all there because they recognized that they weren't enjoying something in their life. It doesn't have
Right.
to be improv, even though I'm obsessed with improv.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do. It just can sometimes be scary to put ourselves in there. But also on your end, you're actually thinking about it. That's the next step. We can think about it and go, but it's actually on the forefront of your mind and something that you're aware of and actively pursuing, which is really, that's like the next 20 levels. So
Oh,
yeah,
thanks. I didn't know. I didn't know I was there. Thanks.
you're there. You're there. We'll do improv together. Come to
Okay.
Australia. And
Yeah, that would be lovely.
oh, I've got so many points, but this could be an interesting way to go because I know that you started out in the industry when you were like 13 or 14 or 12. I don't even know. And probably something around then. And you were what people call a child actor, even I don't really understand what that means. You're an actor regardless of
Yeah.
your height or stature.
Yeah,
Did
exactly.
you have more play and fun at a younger age? And then when you're an adult, there's more responsibilities and blah, 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 blah.
I mean, when I was doing the first acting I ever did was in a play. It was and that certainly felt like play. Um
Oh, that's what I
uh
was going to say. Sorry for cutting
oh
you
yeah, go
off.
ahead.
Other people on this podcast who've talked about playing fun that when they do a role on TV or movie, to get out of the seriousness of it, if they haven't allowed themselves to play and have fun, they'd always go to theater to just kind of
Oh,
jumble it up a bit and bring back the play and the fun. So
yeah.
anyway, I just thought I'd bring it up. Continue.
No, I mean, that is one of the things that I have loved about theater. Well, there's a number of things. One is the audience responses, most people say. Another is the fact that it's, the time, the rehearsal time to try different things. A third is the community of it, the backstage, the gossiping backstage. I mean, theater actors generally love gossiping and love to, have happy hours and drink wine and, and eat cheese and crackers. I mean, they're
Nice.
a great group of people. They're jovial. They're lovely. Um, they love the theater. I mean, there's something wonderful about theater people, and I'm a member of a couple. Well, right now just one, but theater companies in LA, and they're just lovely, lovely people. And uh, but the other thing, yeah, is that once they give the announcement and the lights go down and then they come back up or the curtain draws and you're on stage. And nobody's going to yell cut. Nobody's going to stop it, unless there's a technical malfunction. But even then, you're kind of in charge. You're running so if you want to try something new, even though you're not supposed to, or you want to, you can. And then you might hear, afterward, that moment from the director, interesting when you went over to the bar tonight instead of being over like, yeah, I don't know, I just wanted to kind of try it. And then I found myself at the bar and I thought, how am I going to get over there to do this moment? But I don't know. I just kind of fumbled around. And really that probably should be reserved that's a little bit playing with fire sometimes, depending on who you're working with. But that's,
Yeah.
but that is part of the fun, I think, of theater acting. But yeah, I was in a play and it was very enjoyable, and I got a sense of that community I referred to when I was at a younger age, and then I got a larger role and it was the same kind of thing, and it was more responsibility and more lines, but it was more choices and more playfulness of performing, not just playfulness of, backstage. And then I got to LA and it was still fun, but filmmaking was it doesn't have that. I shouldn't say it doesn't, but it oftentimes the mechanical nature of it can feel very. It is very start and stop. It's
Yeah.
action cut, action cut, action cut. Let's do this piece. It can be very I don't know what the word, but I don't want to say robotic, but let's say robotic for now. Let's say
Yeah, it
mechanical.
definitely can be.
So, I don't know. And then of course it can feel very precise, as it should be. You got to stand here, don't look here, look that, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I remember my first job, but I don't remember any negative experience on it. It was a failed Nickelodeon pilot, a live action pilot with Amanda Bynes, that no one ever saw. Well, I never saw. I don't think it ever made it to air. And so, and then you get, but see, then you get into the audition world. And as a child actor, that's very difficult because you see the same people over and over again. You feel like, oh, you're in competition with these people. And they got that role. I didn't get that role. They brought them in again. Oh, it looks like we're all here for the callback. Oh, they were here. Now they're here for the callback. Oh, but they want to read them. They're doing a mix and match and they want them to read with this person, but they haven't called me in yet. Oh, they called me in once, but they called in twice. It becomes it doesn't become about the acting at all. And so I think that it kind of messes with you. And again, messes with your worth. And then you
Yeah.
start equating your performance quality with your worth. And then you're looking for also some kind of external measurement of your performance.
Oh,
You're not really
true.
maybe following your instincts, or maybe then you're not necessarily performing for the joy of it. You're performing to get the part, or performing to impress, or performing. I mean, look, I'm thinking this out as I'm talking, but I think that there's a lot of things that come into it, and I think that that's really hard on kids, child actors, when they don't really have much life experience and they don't really have much of an identity because they
Or a
haven't formed it
framework.
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, or any framework of what this is, or what's, with the machine that they're part of. Um, and so if you don't have a sense of who you are, you don't haven't built character with all these other things, and instead you're building character in competition on a professional level with all a bunch of other kids, and then you're working with adults on, stuff where a lot of money's on the line because it's going to be in theaters or it's going to be on TV, and then the whole world's going to see it. I mean, it's like, oh my God. I always tell people, don't ever put your kids in, you know, and I would never put my kids through that.
Well, because you
Uh,
wouldn't just like I haven't been in that arena, but it would, as you said, the self-worth would be purely about getting a job. Maybe not even a job you
yeah,
want
yeah.
because of that competition, and you don't. Yeah, that's really, and that can
You know,
definitely like
yeah,
impact people in a negative sense as well.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. And I think that that's why there's this idea, or stereotype or cliche, really, of child actors and then the washed up child actor, i.e., someone who used to be a child actor but doesn't act anymore. Um, because it is interesting. I mean, I know a few people who were maybe started before me, but we used to audition in the same rooms growing up when I was, and I think I don't even remember when I started, I think 14, 15, 16, something like that. And and we talk about how there are a lot of people who we saw, and you would know, you go, oh, that were that kid in such and such, and there are a lot of times they're clickbait now, like such and such from Sandlot looks
Yeah,
like
I know.
this,
I
and
hate
you'd
it.
see these people, yeah, and you'd see these people, and you'd be auditioning with them, or they'd be auditioning for a different role, but for the same project, and you'd see them again and again, and then these actors either stopped acting or whatever. I'm not sure what happened, or they just go on to different careers. But I think it's because I mean, it's unique to everyone, but I think it's just a hard thing to get through. It's really not easy it's not, it's really, it can be very damaging, very,
Yeah,
very damaging.
definitely.
And, um, you know, I don't even know. Now I've gotten on it being a
No,
dad.
I think it's super
Yeah.
important. Especially the self-worth side. Was the stigma of a child actor ever in the forefront of your mind? Like, you mentioned like the washed up actor. Was it something you thought about, or like at a subconscious level? Because we do
No,
hear those stories, and I could
yeah,
only imagine that they're not helpful to hear. And you understand
no,
why people don't continue after what you've just said.
yeah. I mean, as a kid, I didn't really think about it. I just thought about, um, just thought about whatever the role was in front of me or who else was up for it, or, but it's, it's, I often wonder, I don't know what I would have been like had I just done theater and then entered the acting world at, after high school at least, or after college or something.
Depending.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd have a different perspective on the work. I do know there were times where, just what I'm describing, where I got really, really upset, where I'd work really, really hard on something, um, and I wouldn't get the role, or I could tell that I wasn't going to get the role, and they clearly liked someone else for the role, and it's hard not to take all that very personally. And I was never one of those, I don't think, but cute kids or something, and people like, oh, they're so cute, so they got, so I can't only imagine when everyone's going, oh my gosh, you're so cute, and then you start to grow, and your face starts to change, or you start being gangly, and then you feel like, oh, I'm not the cute kid anymore. I don't, I can't imagine how hurtful that is, to feel like, oh, they don't like me anymore because of nothing I can do anything about. I'm just growing. Um, I mean, that's got to be a real mind fuck.
It's also interesting as part of your story that I read that your dad would go with you along with these auditions as well, because you're a
Yeah.
minor, obviously, and you need a guardian. And I'm sure there were many positives and many negatives with that experience as well. But I'm sure, just thinking out loud, that you already have to go through all of this. You're a kid, you're developing. There's just, life's probably happening so fast, and you're just trying to process what's going on. But also, you probably didn't want to let your dad down at some level because he's going with you,
Yeah.
and that would be, just speaking out loud, I wouldn't have liked that. I'm sure he was great and there were many other positives, but that's just an extra layer, which I'm sure he wasn't putting any, or you can correct me if I'm wrong, putting that pressure on you, but he's going with you as well. And
Yeah. I mean, it was, he was very patient to do all that. And it's kind of a strange, you look back on it, it's so bizarre. I mean, drive me around, wait in all these waiting rooms, talk to they're mostly stage moms, and he was a stage dad, they
oh,
call
that's
him.
hilarious.
And so, uh, and yeah, there is a degree of that. I mean, you leave you're waiting in the audition room, and you would never run lines with my dad, I don't think. I mean, maybe, I'm sure I did actually a few times, but he's terrible at reading lines. So it's just more distracting than anything. I think I had to do a tape with him, and I had to coach him because I was like, you can't just say the words, just say the words.
He's like,
Like, this is a
hello.
question, you have to end it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, but he was very, very generous with his time, and all that. And but yeah, you sit in the waiting room, and then you're looking at the sides, and there's other people, and then they call you in, Josh, and then you go in, and then you have whatever feeling you have when you left the room, like, did I do a good job, or did I not do a good job? And then you gotta say hi to your dad, who's probably gonna go, how'd it go, in my case at least. And you can get very, especially as a young kid, very persnickety about that. Like, well, I don't know, I don't, or or what terrible, or I don't know, or you just don't want to be asked immediately by your parent, how did you do on that thing that was just a performance? And like, does that mean, I mean, he didn't pressure me in any way, or at least not in any overt way. So, uh, this is more just self-imposed, but it is an interesting dynamic.
Have to do a part two just to discuss that, because it's just another, it's very interesting. But just to tie off the self-worth aspect, because whether you're consciously or unconsciously aware, there is so much happening, especially at a young age, that no one really understands. And then we've spoken about all the stuff that you've spoken about. That was a bad way of saying it. It sounds like actively you've been looking at self-worth. Have you had to change or look at different things to help with the self-worth aspect? Because every single person on this planet goes through that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for ways or other things in my life other than acting, that to focus on, that are part of who I am. It's really tough when, as an actor who sometimes actors are auditioning all the time and they're being told no, 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 yes, no, 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 maybe yes, no, no. It's hard not to have your whole identity wrapped up in being an actor.
Yeah.
And an artist, and of any regard, might feel that way, and any creative. But I think the more interesting your life, the more interesting you are as a creative anyway. So you might as well have other things that are, whether you're, you play sports with people, and so I'm not just this, I'm not just an actor, or I build things with, like you said, I mean, we were talking about, are you a handy person? Do you play the banjo? Do you write screenplays? Do you love to travel and write about your travels? Do you love to bake? Do you love to cook? Do you love to, learn languages? Do you just love to read about history? Do you, love to read about history and then go to, like, all these things I think are, and I don't even remember the question now, I'm on a tangent, but are,
you're answering it.
Okay. Are, for me, at least, workarounds, because the trap, the go-to, which seems like maybe I will inevitably either teeter on the edge of again and again the rest of my life as an actor, or my career as an actor, is starting to believe again that your worth is equivalent to the work you get, and then the quality of the work you do. And it's not. I mean, you're a human first, and I think that thinking only hurts your work, kind of paradoxically. You think that well, the more I focus on this, and the more I'm not saying don't work hard. I think that's important,
Yeah.
but also it's an interesting thing we say work hard as opposed to just like, do your work. There's a great emphasis, I know, when I grew up about, or growing up, about how the importance of working hard, if you work harder than anyone else. And I do think to a degree sometimes that's very valuable, but sometimes, depending on who you are, it can be very it can be hurtful, because you can certainly overwork something, or you can be you can just be so obsessed with something that when you arrive to do your work, you kind of shit the bed, because you didn't have anything else to distract you from it. So you're so rigid about this thing that you've worked so hard on, and then you go to deliver in an art form that's supposed to be kind of effortless and spontaneous, and you can't make it spontaneous because you have so much is resting on it. And that's a hard thing to find, that balance. I mean, how do you approach something? I'm always tricking with that. Like, for this project, how hard do I need to work? Have I worked enough? Do I need to let this go? Should I just show up? I mean, I know I just said a lot, and I saw.
No, I'm so happy. I don't think we've actually discussed the definition of hard work. Thank you. I've been thinking about this, and I've never said it out loud. Because yes, we want to work hard, whatever that means. But one example a guest had was, his identity was he has to be an actor, and everything he does has to be in an acting lens. And he received advice from an acting coach where the advice was, go get a life. Go get a hobby, go get a life. You'll be a better actor for it. And I think it's so important, because as a screenwriter, if I sit in a room all day and I write, first of all, that's not going to help. Second of all, I actually get a lot of my ideas by being in nature, speaking to friends, watching something, doing something. But also this definition of work hard, and I might sound like an idiot because I haven't spoken out loud about this. What does that actually mean? Like, success in my eyes isn't just purely success in the one little identity that we've got. It's
Yeah.
about hopefully trying to be successful in as many aspects of our life as possible. So friendships, family, maybe your body or your mind, or I don't know, we're talking about Banjo, so many different things. And that actually leads to a whole view of success. And
Yeah.
so if we're purely focusing on the one thing, and definitely work hard and work at it and try to be the best that you can, but if you neglect these other things, it can actually impact the thing that you're working on the most. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? And that was my big rant.
No, no, I think that makes complete sense. It's everything informs everything else.
Yes, you
And
said that in a sentence,
yeah,
which is a lot better.
no, 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 but it's also nice to, I remember, I can't remember what award it was or whatever it was. But Al Pacino and I used to I don't really watch the Academy Awards every year, but sometimes I watch some. I actually didn't watch this past year, but
Is that the one with
I
Will
heard
Smith?
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, uh, but I was watching the Academy Awards as a young actor. I don't know when I was like, I don't know, probably 18 or something like that. And they were on. And of course, every probably young male actor wants to be Al Pacino when they grow up. So, Al Pacino got honored. He either won an Academy Award or he got honored for something, or I don't remember. But I remember the one thing he said that resonated with me and I've never forgotten. He started his speech and he said, I don't always want to act. And it was a terrible Pacino. But I thought, oh, are you okay? Do I need
Yeah,
to
I was
sit?
laughing and then I went into a
Okay,
coughing fit.
okay. Um, I don't want to just go on. You're just
No, no, no. I
sorry,
could hear you. Yeah.
struggling over there. Yeah, I just thought that was it really resonated with me, and I still think about it because I always thought, oh, if you deserve to be an actor, if you're meant to be an actor, if you're meant to be whatever, you better want to do it all the time, all the time. And I thought, well, okay, I don't, and I think that was my secret is I don't want to do it all the time. Sometimes I really don't want to do it, and and it was very validating to me to hear that from Al Pacino. Um, Now, I don't know, maybe some people do feel that about what they do. They're like, I want to do it all the time. I want to act when I'm sleeping. I want to act when I'm awake. I want to act in this. And I love acting. But like I said, sometimes I have a lot of trouble with it. Struggle, I should say. Um, and so, but there's something valuable about that in that. So you might love screenwriting for an hour of the day and then go, you know what, I really want to reward myself because I want to go swimming, and that's okay. It's not like, oh, you didn't work hard enough, or I mean, it's all up to the individual to decide, but
Yep.
I think that we can take it too far because yeah, we can take it too far. That's all
You
I'm trying to say.
are right, especially on the writing side, for example. If I can do a solid 1 hour, that is, yeah. And I know you do
Yeah.
writing, which I want to ask about in a sec. That is, I remember my dad said, and he means well, we have a great relationship. Because, as an accountant, you're like 9 to 5, whatever your hours are. He's like, why aren't you sitting at a desk doing 9 to 5? I'm like, I will not be a good writer if I do that. Yes, there's
Yeah.
sometimes I need to really sit down and do that. But I need to go out. Meditating helps for me. I need to go out for walks. Everything that I'm doing to help me is actually helping the writing, as I said before. Me
Yeah.
going on that walk helps my body, helps my mind, and it makes me a better writer.
Yeah.
Me going to gym makes me a better writer. And that's how I've
Yeah.
had to frame it. And I'm glad that you kind of put words to what I've been feeling, because
Yeah.
all of it helps. And you don't need to do it all the time. And I don't have what I would call an obsessive personality. I don't want to do the one thing the whole time. Because you've got so many different interests that actually also help you and just to like go away from it. And half the actors here have said, like, after doing a big acting job, the last thing they want to do is acting. They just want to sit and relax and do whatever they got to do, or do like a hobby. And it helps. So then they get the energy back or whatever, and then they can go back and do it. But
Yeah.
this narrative of, if you love something, you have to do it all the time. It's baloney for probably most people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and there is also the flip side of it. The flip side of it is like, well, I just show up. I just show up and I see what happens. I don't know, like, and then, I mean, there is I like anything, there is a balance between the two of those things. Or,
Yeah. And it depends on the
but
individual.
yeah, I have to remind myself that all the time.
I,
You're
I
more than what you do.
yes, you're more than you do. That's what we're going to call this podcast.
Okay.
I just wanted to tie one thing before we do a quick rapid fire segment. I know that you've now done a bit of writing and directing. What was your reasoning behind that?
Um, well, the first film, honestly, I mean, a huge part of it was that there was a bit of a lull in terms of opportunities, in terms of acting. I mean, I wasn't doing too much, and I had always been interested in directing. I had directed a little bit of theater, some small plays, 99C theater. Actually, I think I had co-directed a play. I don't know if I directed a full play, but anyway, um, and actually in college, I tried to direct something. I tried to direct. This Is Our Youth, which most people are familiar with, the Kenneth Lonergan play. And uh, I'd always wanted to do it. Someone in my life said, I went to, someone in my life said, I went to Sundance and I met some short filmmakers, and someone in my life was a little bit discouraging about it. And I think, because I said, I think I'm interested. This is really cool. I'm interested in maybe doing this. And they were kind of discouraging about it. And uh, I think part of me did it to spite them, um,
Nice.
um, and quite honestly, and I and then it became a very personal project, and I was really proud of writing it. Felt a little bit cathartic, and um, that was my first film, and then the whole experience of producing it and all that was, and in addition to writing and then directing it was great, but it was very difficult. A lot of challenges, but it was ultimately worth it, and it was very thrilling. And post production was, just like in the second short film, a bit of a nightmare. It just went on and on and on and on. It was just
Yeah, I
so
can
much work.
imagine.
Like pre-production seems a lot of work, and then production's challenging, but it's fun because it's all happening in a condensed period of time. And you have all this production, all this preparation beforehand. But yeah, post was really really difficult. And then the second one came about because I got more interested in directing after directing that first one, and I thought, well, I don't want to make a, I had made a drama the first time, and this fun idea had come up um, based on an experience I'd had in Joshua Tree with a friend, where my friend owns a house in Joshua Tree, and his wife owned a house there, and they invited some friends out to come out to the house, and I got an email saying something like, bring your tent, and bring your animal onesies, and I didn't know what it was, and there was kind of a joke running around that I thought it was going to be an orgy, because it was like a bunch of couples, and I was single at the time, and I went out there, and they thought it was so funny that I was kind of on edge, that I thought maybe it was like, did you only invite me to an orgy? And
We've been thrilled.
yeah, yeah, and anyway, and so then we turned that into a short film idea for fun, and we filmed it actually at the location that evening. Or that weekend occurred at, and both films were really they were really fun to explore, to learn about, really, the festival circuit as well. I mean, I went around with my first film, A Real Adventure. It's now on omletto.com, or I think they have a YouTube channel, which is very, you submit to Omletto, and then if they really like it, they showcase it on their channel, and
Oh,
they have
amazing.
like they're one of the bigger distributors, I think, of short film content. And so it was really pleased that they enjoyed the film, and it did well in a few festivals. And then the second short got into a few film festivals, but it also, a lot of them were in 2020. In fact, there was so a lot of them were canceled, a lot of them were digital, and then so that I didn't really go around with that, which probably saved me a lot of money in terms of having to travel all these film festivals. So but fortunately, there's a European market called Shorts TV, and they decided, they had seen it at this film market that I had submitted to, and they wanted to buy the rights to distribute it in Europe. So now it's
That's amazing.
supposedly, I don't know where, but in Europe, and then we have it here in the United States on Amazon. But anyway, that's where those are. But it's really it was really a great experience, and I'm working with a friend right now. We are trying to get a feature made that we might co-direct, or we plan to co-direct, and we're really excited about that, and we're really proud of it. So hopefully that'll be something to talk about in the not so distant, in the very near future.
I just want to make one comment. You were lighting up talking about this, so that is really cool. And talk about like play and fun. It sounds like
Yeah.
yes, there were a lot of challenges reading between the line, but you were
Yeah.
smiling the whole time talking about those experiences. And
Oh,
just
I appreciate that feedback. Yeah.
just as a quick one-off comment, a real adventure. Were there any similarities to your life there?
Yeah, A Real Adventure is a personal film. There were a lot of similarities. Um, uh, my dad was incarcerated for a little bit, and so the film is about visiting a dad and characters visiting his dad in prison or in jail. I don't know. I don't know what the distinction is, but yeah,
Oh, okay. I
uh,
wish.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Go on. Sorry. No, cut you
No,
off.
no, that's okay.
No, I
That's
wish
and
I wish
so
I had more time to explore that because that's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I without really knowing what I was doing, I just wrote it and then I think I was intending to write a short film. I don't even remember where the idea came from, but it did come from somewhere and then uh it just felt, it changed a little bit, but it was mostly there from pretty much the first draft. I mean there were a lot of, minor corrections all over the place, but uh, and then of course filming it changed again,
Of
and then
course.
post changed again. But yeah, it was. I've heard that a lot of people make their first, they write their first film or make their first film. It's usually the most personal, and I don't know if that's going to be the most personal thing I ever make, but it certainly to date has been the most personal. Yeah.
Well, congratulations to you for actually doing something like that because one, you obviously want to put yourself out in some way, but two, something so personal out to the world and going out of your comfort zone, that's really tough. So huge
Yeah.
credit to you. Um,
Thanks.
what we're going to do is a very, very, very quick rapid fire segment. So the first thing that springs to mind, but if you need time to think about it, that's completely fine. What are you most proud of?
Oof. First thing came to mind was this play I did a long time ago called Women in Wallace, which is a Jonathan Mark Sherman play that we did a production here in LA. And yeah, it was just, I don't know, it's the first thing came to mind.
What's been your special ingredient to work all these years?
I guess a sense of humor. Yeah.
If money wasn't a factor, what would you be doing with your $218.9 million
Yeah,
dollars?
exactly. But it is a factor.
Yeah.
No, um, well, I think that I would still want acting in my life, but I might spend a lot more time um, in maybe a lot more time outdoors.
Something you want to get better at.
Banjo, I'm looking at it. Yeah, always.
What would you do if you knew you could not fail?
I mean, I'd like to think I'm doing it.
Amazing. What brings your best creative content out of you?
Joy,
Next big dream or goal?
uh, directing a feature film.
You've kind of answered this. Any advice you'd like to give to people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
Yeah, jump into the water. I mean, there's nothing bad that's going to happen. I mean, the only one stopping you is you. And it's all there for the taking. I mean, it's all there for you to experience. The whole world's been set up. All these wonderful people have created all these things throughout, the history of humanity for you to, you can be inspired by them and learn from them, or be taught by them, or work with them, or, you know, uh, it's there's just like a jungle gym waiting for you. That's what it feels like.
What keeps you motivated?
Um, I don't know. An inner clock, just this ticking clock.
If you could go back into a time when you were first starting out, what advice would you give yourself and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I would probably tell myself to sorry, a few things popped in my head. Um, I would probably tell myself to try to enjoy it more. Yeah.
This is my favorite question. Before I ask how people can follow you, keep up to date with you, what is the one question I should have asked you?
Um, the one question you should have asked me is, what's my favorite thing to make in the oven? And the answer is pizza, cast iron pizza, the
Ooh,
cast iron pan.
that sounds amazing. Before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with all the cool things that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram mostly at ZuckermanJosh. It's my last name first and my first name last. So at ZuckermanJosh there on Instagram and at IllBeZucked on Twitter.
Awesome. We'll
Yeah,
upload that in the episode notes so people can check it out. You're a mensch. I love you. I love you're a philosopher. We could do this all day. Thank you so much for your time. And
yeah.
yeah, you're
Thanks
awesome.
so much for having me. Really, it was wonderful to talk with you as well. And I do hope that it was a helpful conversation for me to have, and I hope it was for you as well.
I love Josh's take on "you're more than what you do." Often we tend to label someone as their job or career in life, but Josh explains that we're simply more than this. Whether we have a hobby, a passion, great friends, like to hike, etc., all these layers add to who we are. We are not simply the one thing that people or society may assume us to be. Josh also has a great take on letting go. This can be a really tough theme to explore for some, especially when something doesn't go to, inverted commas, the plan. Detachment may be easier said than done, but Josh brings himself back to the basics and he reminds himself to quote, "Well, there is nothing else I can do about it. I did the best I could do with reason." Through my observation, reminding ourselves to be in the moment and give ourselves reassurance that feeling insecure, doubtful, anxious, etc. are all normal feelings, and we can use this as an experience to grow from and improve for the next one. So I'll leave you with this epic quote by Eckhart Tolle. "The primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but your thoughts about it." Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.